watching the Commissioner's Report, and we are here with Commissioner Lindsey. And Commissioner Lindsey, you brought us to a special place. Where is this place?
Well, this afternoon we're at the Peace Creek Station here on Rifle Range Road on State Road 60, just a little bit east of Bartow. This is one of 45 different stations that we have scattered around the county. Staff with over 600 folks, EMTs and firefighters, and the folks that respond to first responders that we rely on so often, too often. Board of County Commissioners has made public safety a high priority, our highest priority this year. At our retreat just a few months ago, we listed all the things, all the challenges that are facing us, and we decided that collectively that public safety and the fire services need more attention, need more resources. During the downturn of the economy, we kind of put those things on pause for a while, and now it's time to give them a greater share of the growth that we're experiencing in the tax base. This facility was built in 2009. It's about $1.4 million. But what I enjoy most about this facility is this is a prototype building that we replicate throughout the county. And as we take an older station out of service that is just simply wore out, and many of these 45 stations are wore out, we will take this same floor plan, this same footprint, and replicate it throughout the county, saving the citizens and taxpayers of this county a lot of money.
Right, so no one has to buy all these extra plans and
That's
redesign
right.
things. It's pretty much they're going to look they're pretty much going to look the same, use the same plan, and be scattered throughout the county.
That's correct. And these stations typically will have a lifespan of about 50 years, so long past my time in the service here and long past my time on this planet, this facility and the ones that follow will be servicing the folks of Polk County.
Yeah, half a century. A lot of us may not necessarily make it that long, and that's a very long time to have one of those one of these stations in service.
Today at our agenda study session in advance of tomorrow's board meeting, we will be approving 2 new additional ambulances to be stationed in the county. The staff and the chief and his team are working on where the demand for service is, so we place those ambulances where the greatest demand of service is. And right now it appears that one of them will go in the Lakeland urban area and perhaps one over in the Auburndale area where the demand has been picking up. So it's a constant battle to put the resources where the demand is. And I think I heard numbers today that last Friday was a record day, some huge number of calls for ambulance services that pressed everybody into service.
Right. And you just mentioned that we have 45 stations here in Polk County. It's about 600 staff members. It's a lot of stations, but not all of the stations are going to look like this one. Some of them aren't in very great shape.
Well, that's what I was saying. Some of the service, remember, the fire services in Polk County is relatively new phenomenon compared to older cities, particularly cities up north that have been in operation for 100 years or more. I think it was by referendum that the countywide fire service, about early 1970s, about 72 of that era. Prior to that, we relied very heavily on volunteer services. And since then, Polk County has gone from a major agricultural county with urban services limited to the cities, Auburndale, Winter Haven, Lakeland, that provided their own fire service, Bartow and others. There was very little service outside those cities. So when the countywide referendum approved the creation of it, that provided a funding source for it, and those funding sources have been dedicated exclusively for that purpose. And it has taken this long to develop the staff and develop the equipment and the training necessary to provide the level of service we enjoy today. But I have spent time with some of the firefighters and some of the medical personnel, and I can tell you these people are really dedicated to what they do. And I admire their dedication, and the training is constant. How can we do it better? How can we do it safer? How can we do it faster? And serve the patients who are in need, as well as protect the property that firefighters are dedicated to do.
Mm-hmm. And I know some of the other stations that recently did a remodel. One was the Four Corners, that's station 250. We had the John Phil station over in West Winter Haven. That was Station 450 and 480, the Medulla Station, and there are going to be more coming on board in the very near future.
Yes, we received word from our legislative delegation in Washington, D.C. that Polk County is a recipient of called a SAFER grant, which basically is dedicated funds for firefighters and rescue to fund the station and the staffing. Now, like most of it, these grants come with strings. They will provide the funding for the early years, and then it'll be up to us to fund it thereafter. But every dollar that we can get from state or the federal to help us defers the expenses here on the local. But the need is exhibited, and we're going to rise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm. And again, you mentioned it earlier, but I'll say it again, only $1.4 million to build these stations, and they last around 50 years. That's just phenomenal. But again, some work is needed in some of the stations and stuff. How soon do you see the commission working to get those stations up to speed?
Well, I hope we're going to have at least one more station next year. We got a temporary station going in the Poinciana area, and that's where we'll put that SAFER grant money. But we're not going to wait on the money coming before we build a station. We're going to have a temporary station, staff it, equip it, and have a presence in that community, and then the station will follow. So I expect we're going to see a lot more capital commitment. And look, the equipment behind us, you can talk about $1.4 million for a building. Just the equipment it takes to put on these vehicles is phenomenal. And they have a life cycle also that requires being replaced. I want to go back to what I mentioned earlier about the dedication of this team that we put together. I was privileged to be riding with some of the EMT personnel back when one of the paramedics was involved in a firefight, for lack of a better word, and was wounded. I was at the hospital when they came down, and it was like organized chaos. Everybody knew what they were supposed to do, and it went off without a hitch. The paramedic recovered fully from his wounds, but it shows the camaraderie and the team effort between all of our public safety personnel, the firefighter personnel, the medical personnel, our friends at the Sheriff's Department. This is a team effort, and the other jurisdictions. We have mutual aid agreements with the cities around the area, which they cover a little bit of our territory, we cover some of their territory, and it works to the benefit of all, because they're all citizens of Polk County. And the idea is to get the best bang for the buck and the best service. We're going to, this Board of County Commissioners, and I'm proud to be just one of 5, have made a promise to these first responders that we're going to give you the tools and resources to do a quality job.
Excellent. Now, of course, no matter what type of job you're in, you're always going to have critics.
Oh, yes.
For those who may criticize the Polk County Fire Rescue, what would you say to them?
Well, when you need that service, you don't care what decal's on the truck. You want that service, whether it's your property that is being threatened by some of the fire or some of the catastrophe, or you or your family is involved in a traffic accident or some other mishap. I was a critic before I came on the commission simply out of ignorance that, why in the world we send a fire truck like this to, a fender bender? Well, you don't know the extent of the injuries at that fender bender, and every one of the men and women that man this truck is a trained EMT. And if they can get there first, they can provide that stabilization and get the people safely extracted from the vehicle and stabilize their condition before the transport gets there. Those few minutes very often can make the difference.
And funny you mentioned that, because there may be the case too that someone was in a fender bender, and we do have a lot of older people here in Florida. That person that was in that accident may have suffered from cardiac arrest or something.
Sure.
We don't necessarily know.
Yes. Well, as I have joined those older senior citizens, yes, we're all subject to life-changing moments at a moment's notice. And I commend the training that the staff gets, and it is constant, and it takes a toll on the family too. Look at the cycle that these young men and women work, 24 on and 72 off, and it disrupts a family lifestyle and that cycle. So it is a career commitment that the entire family has to buy into. And we are lucky to have the staff that we do, the leadership we do, and it very much is a team effort.
That's right. And also, I know we've just went past a recruitment session. Any more like those you think going to be coming up in the near future?
Well, there's a constant training process. In fact, I had the privilege to visit one recently. Just simply a training process on filling out the paperwork right. And that is a constantly changing process also. Just like every other major industry, this industry is seeing a graying of the process and senior officers aging out and retiring. And so it's critical that we have new young folks coming up through the system so that they learn from the folks that are here now, and that institutional memory is not lost. That's very critical that we preserve that.
You're right, because in the very near future we're going to be getting a new fire chief because
Yes.
Chief Cash would be retiring.
Chief Cash was among those who were here early on when, as I mentioned, the referendum back in the early 70s, and he has helped shepherd this organization to where it is today. I'm proud of his contribution, and he should be proud of his service to this community. This community owes Chief Cash gratitude for his personal sacrifice and his family sacrifice for allowing him to do what he does for the citizens of Polk County.
And we're running out of time, unfortunately, but anything else you want to add before we go?
It really boils down to what I said on the outset. You really don't care who shows up when you need the service and what decals on that truck or on that ambulance. But because of that, we have a great relationship with our municipal partners, and the idea is to give our citizens of Polk County the best service that they deserve.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Lindsey.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Don't you go anywhere, because we have more Commissioner's Report coming up right after this.
The earthquakes you see in movies are one thing, but real life is a completely different animal. Just because you can't predict an earthquake doesn't mean that you can't prepare for one. In the event of a real earthquake, you should drop, cover, and hold on. Visit ready.gov/earthquake and practice what to do to keep you and your family safe in the event of a real earthquake. And you'll be seen as a hero by your family and your loved ones.
Visit ready.gov/earthquake today.
Welcome back to the Commissioner's Report, and we're going to be talking tourism and sports marketing today. And we have Commissioner Hall here with us, and he's brought on the Director of Polk County Tourism and Sports Marketing, Mr. Mark Jackson. Welcome to the show.
Well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you. It is good to be here. Thank you.
So why do you want to talk about this specific topic today?
Tourism and sports is big in Polk County. Polk County should be a destination, and is considered a destination for tourism and sports. We have the Detroit Tigers just finished spring training here. Every year that means tens of millions of dollars to our economic impact for Polk County and the businesses in and around Lakeland. We have Sun and Fun. It's just starting. That's an approximate $52 million economic impact again, and that's not just all in Lakeland. That's all over the county. They use Gilbert Field in Winter Haven. They use Kissimmee. There are places that benefit from these types of activities in our county.
And Mr. Jackson, excuse me, sorry. So what is your role pretty much in this whole entire thing?
Well, I think the bottom line is for Polk County, you really have to take your hats off to the Board of County Commissioners for many, many things, but number one, making very wise decisions. And really the mission of Polk County Board of County Commissioners is to enhance the lives of Polk County citizens and businesses. Well, they do that in a number of ways, and one of those ways, making solid decisions about, well, we have a choice. We can raise taxes to provide more services, or we can invest in tourism and sports marketing to generate revenue for the county, because tourism and sports are technically exports. The customer just happens to come to us and drop off all their yen, their pesos, their dollars, their loonies, if they're from Canada. Could be anything, the pound, but the customer just comes here. So what happens is it creates thousands and thousands of jobs for Polk County citizens. The businesses prosper and the citizens are made better off. So we're all made better off here in Polk County because of those wise investment decisions. It isn't an expense, it's an investment. And the board has gotten behind two major strategies with Polk County tourism and sports marketing, which is driving demand. In other words, increasing the amount of visitors that come here, both through tourism and sports activities, but also investing in the supply. For example, the Tiger Stadium, there was an investment there made in addition to the state and the city to refurbish or enhance that stadium to bring more people in. The best part about it is they're not using taxpayer dollars. These are tourism dollars that tourists pay when they spend the night in Polk County for up to 6 months. So that's where the revenue comes from. All that business that comes in, we're all made better off.
And do we have any estimates on how much money this whole entire sports and tourism is bringing in for the county?
Well, just on the sports side, the sports business in Polk County, we recruit, manage, and host 230 events on average every single year. Okay. Now those are just the events that we bring in, we recruit, and we compete against New York, Atlanta, Miami, Disney, whatever it may be. That generates roughly $134 million in economic impact. So that's new money just being dumped into Polk County. Wow. When you start adding the other activities, sporting events like Sun and Fun, which is a sport aviation event. You have the Detroit Tigers, as Commissioner Hall mentioned earlier, and he was spot on with the numbers. We're close to $250 million, with $250 million just in sports. Mm-hmm. Now the tourism industry overall in Polk County is well over $1.4 billion annually. So it's a lot of jobs. It's the state's #1 industry. And believe it or not, sports is #2.
Wow. And I believe we were talking about before we started to shoot the show is that it helps with the unemployment here in Polk County.
Oh, absolutely. As Mark had said earlier, just with Legoland opening, and that's tourism. That's bringing people from all over the world to Polk County. We had a 1% drop in our unemployment rate. And then with all of the other sporting events, those that are timed annually, like spring training with the Detroit Tigers and Sun and Fun, there are people that are seasonal workers that are put to work, and maybe they don't want a full-time job, maybe they're retired, but they're seasonal workers and they want additional income, and that happens. So yeah, there's a big boost in our economy because of the people that are being put to work on these events.
The Cleveland Indians decided that they wanted to return to Arizona, okay, for their spring training. Well, at the time, it's about a $30 million a year. Now, this was several years ago, and actually now the economic impact of spring training, Tigers is right around in the neighborhood of 55 million, 60 million. So it was a huge economic loss. The Indians are gone. Commissioner said, Mr. Jackson, what are you going to do to replace the Cleveland Indians and the economic impact that, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, we're on it. And so we ended up at their direction because they realized the impact that this has. And if you have a deficit of $30 million all of a sudden, you're going to notice it.
Oh, yeah.
Any community is going to notice it. So we ended up at their direction going out and recruiting the Russ Matt Baseball Collegiate Spring Training, consolidated all their operations nationally. Last year we had 240, this year we had 247 teams that played from mid-February to April 1st, creating an economic impact of $26 million and more than 30,000 room nights. So the board does a great job of saying, look, we need to fill this void and we need to generate more revenue, and you couldn't have a better board than Polk County has. And it's not just because the chairman is sitting next to me. I say this all over the country, which is we've got the best board in the country because they understand investment. They understand economic impact and what it takes. And so their guidance has been instrumental in making this county a better county to live.
And there's a couple more things that just right off the top of my head. We have a equestrian arena area that's going in down around Fort Meade. That's going to bring people in from all over the southeast, quite possibly all over the world because of the great riding venue that it's going to have. And then in 2015, I believe it was, we had the World Shoot here in Polk County, and that is the best marksman from all over the world. I think there was 1,500, shooters from all over the world came to Polk County. Now we're making an attempt to get that back in another 3 or 4 years to have it back here in Polk County because everyone loved the climate. That's one of the best things about it. The climate and just where the event was held, and it was a great event. So you got that many people, and if you've got that many competitors along with those people that come with them, that's a lot of economic impact. That's a lot of money.
And we're conveniently located in Florida as well.
It's a strategic advantage. We're the valley of humility between Orlando and Tampa, and you can read your history books and figure that statement out. But the answer is yes, 2 international airports, and you know, a lot of our business comes from domestically, but we're also very active internationally as well, as Commissioner Hall said. When those international visitors come, they spend about 3 times as much, stay twice as long. It's a great investment, and that's truly what it is for Polk County and for the state of Florida. And it's a way that, and one of the reasons we don't pay personal income taxes here in the state of Florida is because of tourism and sports. It's a great business to be in.
And as Mark stated, we have 2 international airports, one on either side of us, and now we're hoping to attract some international flights into Lakeland. And if that happens, I think that we're going to take off and actually attract even more people here.
Oh, most definitely.
Another directive from the commissioners, but we're on it, and hopefully we're going to be as successful. You know, we'll be, and we're working hand in glove. The county commission, the city commission of Lakeland, really work well together. The city of Winter Haven, all 17 municipalities to work as a team. And it is a team effort. And when I look around the country and at other counties, other regions, I really don't think that there's anybody that has a head or a board that is willing to partner with other municipalities like Polk County does. It's not normal, and it's a good not normal. In that teamwork, there's a lot of synergies there with that, but it takes good leadership. If you don't have the leadership, you're in trouble.
And let me put in one plug for a new, well, I say new, it's actually under new ownership, and that is arena football in Lakeland. A lot of people do not know that it's out there, and I've gone to 3 of the games so far this year, and it's entertaining. You've got some good quality athletes, and it's really a good time. So if they're not taking advantage of it, then and you want a good Saturday night out of good, clean fun, that's a place to go. It's not really expensive. It's affordable for a family to get there, but it's a good sporting event, and that brings people in from out of state, because last weekend they were playing a team from South Carolina. So we had visitors here from South Carolina. Maybe the first time they've ever seen Polk. I hope it's not the last. I hope they come back.
Well, I know you guys mentioned quite a few of the bigger ones as well, but what are some of the other attractions that we do have to bring in tourism and sports marketing?
Well, I think there's 2 things to drive demand. One, you have to have the supply. And as Commissioner Hall mentioned earlier, the development of this equestrian heritage center down in Fort Meade is designed to do that, and it's going to be a hub for agritourism. It's going to be a hub for equestrian, and it'll be a hub for heritage and history, coupled with what's going on in Bartow with the L.B. Brown House and some of the other things here. Terrific venues there. In the sports world, there's a number. We have the three big sports would be soccer, baseball, and softball. And the Lake Myrtle Sports Complex in Auburndale is arguably one of the finest sports complexes in the country. That is expanding. We have 11 international soccer, rugby, lacrosse fields there, all with lights, 9 collegiate baseball fields, all with lights. And the city of Auburndale is putting in 4 more baseball fields, 3 football fields, and then right now we're in the process of developing what we hope will be the 19th official Olympic training center in the United States. USA Water Ski, the foundation, and the international governing body will be relocating to that site. And we'll be digging a 2,500-foot lake by 300 feet wide. There's another lake, Lake Myrtle, and we're building another lake on the other side of that. It's a partnership with public and private sector dollars that are going into it, and it'll be an international training center. And not only will it include training center for U.S. Olympic athletes, hopefuls, it'll also have a cable park, and it'll also be geared towards the Paralympic Games. In other words, athletes with disabilities. And one of the things that the Commission, the City of Auburndale, are very keen on is developing the abilities of our adaptive athletes. It's big business, but it's also a great move for the community. It'll be the only dual-purpose facility at build-out that will be able to accommodate both.
And any last comments about the tourism and sports marketing here in Polk County?
Well, I hate to say this in front of the chairman, but last year, and it's a tribute to the trend, if you look at the growth chart for tourism over the last 6 years, it's been straight up. Last year was a record year. Under their leadership, their guidance, we were up 18%. Wow. It's a record. We're up 23% this year over the record last year.
It's amazing.
So the commissioners are involved in some extremely tough decisions, but one of the toughest, in my opinion, is looking ahead and saying, how can we make this community better? And they do so by investing wisely in infrastructure and in demand-driving strategies. So that's, from my perspective, is one of the reasons that Polk County, it's why I live here. I know it's why Commissioner Hall lives here, but it's a great place to live, and it'll continue to get better under the leadership we have here.
Our climate is great. The things that we offer, we have a ATV park for those that do not like a ball sports, but they want to have a motorized sport. We have an ATV park, and we have annually the basketball state championships in Lakeland. So there's something for everyone here. And if you don't like that, we have arts, and we have some very good arts locations in the county. So if you have someone that you want to bring with you and they don't want to go to the ball game, let them go to our museums and see what we have, see what we offer.
The heart of the arts is the way we're branding it, and the art events and facilities are top notch here in Polk County. Great facilities. Yes. And everything Commissioner Hall said, we have something for everybody.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Mr. Jackson, for joining us, and Commissioner
My pleasure.
Hall.
Thank you.
That is it for this edition of the Commissioner's Report. See you next time.